Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land your job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hello, guys. It is April 1st. I won't say April Fool's Day because we're in the middle of this corona crisis, but I am thrilled to have with me today Dylan Raymond, who is a military to civilian transition expert, which means he is 100% fully fluent in both military and corporate speak. In addition to his coaching practice, he serves as the Military Recruitment Lead for a major petrochemical company in Texas. He was recently highlighted in the Stars and Stripes and on LinkedIn as an influencer and a military advocate to follow. And he is the author of Rucksack to Briefcase, a military to civilian transition guide for service members and their families. And I have a link to that book in the bio that will be posted on my website. During his distinguished 25-year Army career, he participated in 2 overseas combat deployments and worked as a drill sergeant and a New York City Field Recruiter during 9/11. He is the recipient of several military leadership awards, remains very active in the military community, and serves on the board of the Texas Military Forces Support Foundation. So, Dylan, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.
Having me on, Virginia. Thank you so much.
So you heard me give that brief overview. I'd love to hear what prompted you to form the company that you have now and to transition to helping people make the transition from military to civilian on the job front.
Sure. Well, I tell you, originally I kind of entered in this space by default. And back in 2005, when I returned from my first deployment to Iraq, I came back, had a lot of experience in the military. I didn't think it was going to be that difficult transitioning to civilian. In fact, I was probably pretty borderline arrogant because I was like, I need to change my cell phone number because all these companies are going to be calling me. I just can't fill all these questions and inquiries. But then reality hit after 4 months of unemployment. I said, hey, something is not working here. So, looking at a family, being unemployed, we just moved from New York City to Texas. That was really, really stressful on me. So I realized that I knew I didn't know what I didn't know. So I went out and just kind of connected with other individuals and beginning to look around and look for opportunities. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was getting very, very desperate. I was looking to do McDonald's, anything quick, and then I knew that I had this talent of recruiting, that I identified talent, I knew people, and then I said, well, let me try to get into recruiting. So moving in Texas, it was in the oil and gas industry, Petrochemical. I had no knowledge of the industry at all.
Oh, really?
And after being unemployed for 4 months, I began to write down kind of my standard operating procedure. I said, look, I'm never going to get caught like this again. And so I interviewed for a company, and it must have went really well because it was like a 3-hour interview. So I got into that and realized that I was helping people. I was hiring military talent, and I realized that it was good. I was getting better in that space. And lo and behold, the company I'm currently with actually found me on LinkedIn and talked about the opportunity about that. And that's kind of how I ended up in the industry.
And by that point, you had a playbook of what had worked for you, and I'm sure you felt like you had enough to apply to help others.
Absolutely. In fact, when I originally was going to write, I published the book Rucksack to Briefcase. Mm-hmm. When I originally going to write it, I had probably everything I knew, trying to put it in a book. But I had a friend of mine who's written about 20 books. He kind of helped me shape it down to something that was real tangible, easy for service members to grab hold and family members and to be able to apply it.
I love that. So you see people, I'm sure, across all levels of all ranks that are trying to make the transition. What do you see as sort of the biggest challenges that they face in making the transition?
Yeah, so I think the biggest couple challenges, number one, especially when, like you said, working with all branches of service, all level of experience and background, number one is them understanding how their skills translate. So what they end up doing is they end up overcompensating by putting everything that they've actually done without including their junior high school, where they put everything on their award recognition. And, they hope the recruiter will match them in a role. And what I do, I guess because I've had the experience and I can speak fluent in the language, both civilian and military, I'm able to engage them at whatever level they are, knowing what level they would probably fit, at least going into our organization or into another organization. So helping them. And then I encourage them. I said, look, it's not that much different than what you have to know what you want to apply for, know what you can do and what you've done, and then we can kind of match those two things. And so number one is understand how their skills translate. And I think the second challenge, which is normally uncomfortable and something we don't do a lot in the military, me being a 25-year veteran, is networking. How do I network? Why do I have to network? Using LinkedIn. And, you're so successful in the military in most cases, just how to ask questions or even asking people for help. I'm the senior commander, general, colonel, why am I going to ask this person that don't understand what I've done, ask them for experience? And they have to understand that the other thing is their profiles on LinkedIn. A lot of them either is incomplete or it's a lot that continue to keep their photo with a military photo on it. I mean, you got all these awards. It can be intimidating for a non-military person because they don't know what the awards mean or what they've actually done to get those awards.
Yeah, I think, oversharing, throwing everything they've ever done, everything in the kitchen sink, I think that's common for a lot of people that are struggling with, they don't know what makes sense to include and what doesn't. And so it sort of turns into a blueprint versus, a brochure, I guess, for lack of a better analogy. But when you're talking in a completely different language, which is military speak, then there's the potential to be lost is even greater. So yeah, I agree with you. Is there something, and maybe you just answered it with the LinkedIn piece, but what do your clients, is there something that just has them, that surprises them a great deal when they do start to job search? It's just so different from what they've experienced in terms of getting promoted and landing new roles in the military?
And yes, absolutely. And typically, the most things that I've seen that most of the clients are surprised by is how difficult the process is. And number one, not really giving themselves enough time, some runway to actually prepare, to plan, to implement, assess, and continuously do improvements or after action reviews is what we've done in the military. So in most cases, I tell them it's very, very similar and not going to, so they end up taking any job, and typically in that first 2 to 3 years, they're going to have on average about 3 years, 3 different jobs because they haven't taken the time to really invest. I mean, I've talked to people at job fairs and say, hey, when do you get out? It's like Tuesday. What? Are you kidding me?
Do you have a certain amount of time that you recommend, or does it just really depend on where the person is in terms of having figured out what their next move would be?
Yeah, I typically say 6 months. And I tell you, from when I got out the military to now, they're really focusing on that, which is very encouraging. They're getting service members 1 year out, 2 year out, to begin to start considering and thinking about that. And I honestly think it should start from the day one when you enter basic training, because at some point there is going to be an end date, whether it's voluntary or, your time of service is complete.
So at least 6 months is the minimum, ideally from the get-go, but people don't always plan that far ahead, no matter where they are.
Yeah, I think about 6 months is a good sweet spot. A year is even better. And some folks that start, now I'm talking to people that's 2 years out. So they're definitely considering, which is very smart. And they usually land pretty good.
What is it, and I'm sure you have a list of these, but I'd love to hear from you sort of some advice that you sort of give over and over again that you see people do not following that drives you crazy. What drives you most nuts?
Oh, God. Yeah, it's one thing after another. I know you get a lot of folks that call you and they drilling you with all these acronyms. And thankfully, it's like, all these acronyms. And I'm like, really? I said, what does that mean? I don't let them know I'm a veteran. But I think one of the biggest things that's driving me crazy that I see all the time is veterans that, if you look on their resumes, they not only highlight, they bold, italicize, underscore that they're a veteran on their resumes. And what they need to know is that hiring managers and recruiters are looking to source the most qualified candidates, on paper. It doesn't matter what your race, color, creed, religion, gender, disability. You don't have to hide the fact that you're a veteran,
right?
But you need to focus on how are you going to solve the employer's problem. And, oh, by the way, it will be a plus that you have a military background. And so incorporated into that, I love my veterans, even myself, but there is a slight entitlement mentality, meaning that, hey, I served my country, that someone owes the civilian or somebody owes something to them, owe a role to them because they serve. And I always tell veterans, I say, all right, you put that this is a veteran, you put this italicized, like I'm not going to see it, you're going to bold it. What is it that you want me to know that you had to highlight that is the most important thing on your resume? And it usually gets them to think about what is it that they're trying to apply. So I always tell them, I said, when you doing this resume or you're looking to get to a hiring manager, ask yourself the so what question. Okay, so what? You're a veteran. I love what you do. I enjoy what I do, but you got to want to earn that particular role based on you being able to communicate how you're going to solve their problems. So focus on getting the interview, then your experiences.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's all about what skills, what talents do you bring as a result of that experience? I share that same advice with job seekers on LinkedIn. You don't need to put that you are searching for an opportunity, or because to your point, hiring managers are looking for the best candidate, not the best veteran or not the best job seeker. Excellent advice. How do you advise people to get started? Those people that are coming to you 1-2 years out, they're looking to make a career change. What advice do you give to them to get started?
So this is where me and that veteran see eye to eye because they're familiar with acronyms. So I give them an acronym, and I have an acronym called.
What's your acronym?
It's called SPORTS. So start planning early as possible. Then you plan, you work the plan, you edit and continuously improve on the plan. Then orient yourself. Identify where you are, where you want to go, and then focus on the delta. So I need to improve on that. And then reach out to others, both civilian and military. Just don't focus on military because it may be some civilians that can help you in that transition. So that's really networking. And then think outside the box. So you're not limited to doing what you did in the military. So you want to focus on what you want to do and then utilize your experience to help communicate that you can do that. And then the last thing is being able to be comfortable selling yourself on how your military experience would add value, solve problems to the organization you want to go to.
Okay, wait. S is start planning. P is
plan, work, edit, and improve the plan.
All right, and then outside the box is O. R is, I lost R.
Yeah, O is orient yourself.
Orient yourself, okay.
Right. R is to reach out to others, both civilian and military.
I love that, okay.
T is think outside the box. And S is sell yourself. And that usually sticks.
I can't spell SPO. Okay, got it.
It's PORTS, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So, I love that. And you're right. There are, every industry has acronyms, but military seems to have a little bit more than others. But and spelling that out, because not everyone understands. You have to think about what acronyms are specific to your industry and which ones aren't. But I love the sports acronym now that I can spell. What advice do you have for that person that has gotten a start, and it's not going well? So, the person who didn't take the sports analogy to heart.
Right. So if you've already started, what I would say is number one is to stop today and do an assessment of the current plan that you have. And then measure success. I mean, ask yourself, how long have you been on the journey? How many roles have you applied for? How many interviews have you been on? And how many offers have you received? And based on the responses on that, I would recommend that you do a professional resume review. I mean, because most people have old style resumes. Nowadays, it's more of like telling a story. Look at your digital footprint. What is your LinkedIn communicating to the millions of people that's out there? And then tweak your marketing plan, and then work the plan, and then measure the plan for success. And then the last thing I would say is to be cognizant of the self-talk, i.e., companies are not hiring because of COVID-19, or this is the holiday, this is the end of the year. It's those that are determined, put their head down, and activities will help them in their current search.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. You're right. It's self-defeating, because in every crises and during holidays, not everyone is hiring, but there are always people that are. There's pros and cons to all of it, and you have to dig a little bit harder, look in different places. Are you seeing hiring in your industry?
Now there is, I think, across the board, there's a little pause, now with the current situation, but, when you look at the oil prices, I believe down last couple of days was like $20 a barrel.
Yeah, it went down.
It's nowhere near the even break even. I mean, if you look at the pump, I mean, it's good at the pump, but it's put a lot of pressure on the industry. So hopefully they can solve what's going on over in the Middle East and whoever's fighting over oil prices,
And how are you advising your clients in terms of where to target now that hiring has slowed down, certainly in certain areas, and people, we're all homebound?
Well, I would say, just kind of get an idea of what they want to do, and then maybe evaluate some companies, maybe look at 2 or 3 industries, that you may be able to apply your skills. And I think it's going to come back. I mean, we were actually rolling, on a high, and that we totally stopped. I mean, because there are still business leaders that are continuing to post and wanting to go out there and put some work. But again, with this COVID-19, they are sensitive to the care of people and take care of people. But also we know that individuals, look how many people are getting laid off, and just balancing the whole current situation that we're in.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Like you said, things were going so well before things came screeching to a halt, but that the pillars are still really strong, so that when we get let out of our houses, I don't see why they won't come roaring back across on all cylinders. So pivoting a little bit, and I imagine you see this a lot, people that have had a lot of diverse experience. I mean, the military is famous for, you hold a lot of different roles, a lot of different titles. And so when they are ready to transition, they can go in lots of different directions. How do you help them figure that out?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I always say, hey, the statement, jack of all trade, master of none, that doesn't work, you know. And usually I start out with, hey, well, what is it that you want to do? And then they'll tell you, hey, I was a medic and I did supply, operations, and human resources. Not that that really answers the question, but then I kind of give a story of a football field example. I say, hey, you stand at one end of the field and we're going to put 5 doors across the 50-yard line. And I want you to run as fast as you can. And I want you to go through all 5 of those. And it's like you get that kind of look in the eye. It's like, okay, great. Yeah, I know you can do it. And you have something behind each door, but I want you to get the one. You have to choose one that you want to go through. Then we can use the other 4 doors to incorporate and strengthen the position of interest, the entry point that you want to get into. So pick one thing, because if not, you're going to lose somebody like me when I'm always listening for how can I help this person. But when you rattle off everything you want to do or what you've done, and I know the problems that I have and the roles that I have, I don't know how to help you. So I usually ask, hey, how do I empower them with some questions?
Yeah, it makes them make them make a choice. And then you're right, because sometimes the other skills do complement
absolutely
what you're doing. Sometimes not, but then you can make that decision based on what they like. So I'm curious to ask you the question about discrimination, age, race, ethnicity, all of it. When it comes to hiring practices, is that something that you're seeing vets face as well? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic and how you're advising clients.
Yeah. So I number one, I think it's real. It's a real challenge. I mean, because behind every opportunity, we are dealing with people, humans,
yeah.
and they have their biases. So the challenge is, one, how do you overcome the obstacle? First of all, if you're already hesitant in the beginning, in your approach, then that can come out in your approach. And if you think it's a company that may be potentially discriminating, or it wouldn't be a company I would want to work for.
That's true.
So I'm very passionate about it, especially having all girls. So I have to constantly pour into them so that they have a healthy self-esteem. They're comfortable in their skin. I mean, one of them's in school to be an engineer. The other one wants to be a geologist.
Wow.
And I just actually went to an event last ago, just before all this kicked in. It's called Pink Petrol. Really focusing on gender equality and pay equality. So it's work, but it is, and I believe should be an ongoing discussion, So if someone they'd say, hey, well, I think it's race, so I think it's because I'm military.
Right.
I think it's ability. I said, so what is it that what made you believe that it's that? And a lot of them don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes. You post a job and 2,000 people apply, and the business is looking for you to send candidates. Of course, the recruiter doesn't know any of the race, color, creed, especially if you use an applicant tracking system.
Right.
We're going on to send the best candidates that's available in the pool. But it is a real conversation. I think the thing that you have to do is to continue to have the conversation. So, and I know for women, I was at this conference, and they had a breakout session. I am remarkable, and I was like the only guy in there out of all the women. And whereas men, we got 10% of the experience, 20% of the experience. We can apply a lot. Women, and to include like my wife, she has a doctorate in education. If she doesn't see 100% match, she's not going to apply. So it takes even men, to be able to encourage, especially inequality, the paid discrimination. But you got to have that continuous, ongoing conversation because it's a real challenge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually encourage people to use LinkedIn to look at people's pictures. If the company looks like they hire people that are cookie cutter on the outside, then maybe that's not the place for you
right.
as well. But yeah, the conversation does need to keep on happening.
I like that approach. Check the LinkedIn.
Look at the pictures. But you know what? You made me mindful. You can't see disability through pictures.
Right.
How do you advise people to navigate the waters of disability, whether to bring it up or not bring it up?
So I tell you what, we had last year was incredible experience and opportunity for our company to do something they've never done. So we had a young lady who was she was challenged. She had what do you call them? The assisted the dogs.
Oh yeah, okay, like the guide dog.
Yeah, so she had a guide dog. So she went through the interview because everything is was online, and so she's successful in the interview, and she got the offer. And I guess it was a month or two or whatever before she was starting. She said, "Hey, so what do I do? What do I have to do with my dog? How do I get the dog on?" And it literally sparked some things that we never had to do. We learned a lot, even about when you key in to the doors, they only stay open a certain amount of seconds to make some adjustments for that. She prepared the department she was going to work at, find out if there was anybody afraid of animals. And so you see her walking around the campus with the guide dog. And I was like that. I felt so proud.
That's amazing.
The company was like, "Oh, we didn't know about the dog," because she never said anything, until it was time to report. But they did a lot of work, and it was just, she felt great coming to and from. And we have like 5-6 major buildings where she's walking through, and it's just like a normal day. So that was, to me, is incredible.
That says a lot about your company. That's wonderful. So I always like to ask this question because everyone always has something different to say. Someone comes up to you at a networking event and says, "Okay, I am getting ready to go start job hunting. What are 2 things I absolutely have to get going?" What would you say?
First thing I will say is going to start with, as you said, the brochure. I like the way you labeled it as a brochure. Is to have a good, solid, current resume, that's with the times. As you know, that as a professional resume writer, it's about how you communicate, because your message to individuals. So I think having a current, updated resume, not only updated with what you've done, but the way you're communicating in your market plan.
Fresh and current, yeah.
Yeah. And the second thing I would say is have a good marketing strategy plan that's really laser focused, something that will lay out your course of actions, what companies you're going to target, what roles, and then to incorporate looking at your digital footprint, because that's going to help you build up the momentum that you need to get going and to stay going, because ultimately, even if you don't accept offers, you want to get offers at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, the digital footprint, if you maintain it, then you find out about opportunities even when you're not looking.
Absolutely. As recruiters, we do a lot of passive recruiting,
That's right.
You find a lot of people that's not even looking. And until you contact them saying, "You know what? I actually wasn't looking, but I'd be interested to hear about the opportunity."
Yeah, right. Who wouldn't be open to hearing about opportunities? You never know. So, Dylan, you've done so much. you've written books, you have a side business, you have a full-time job. What is next for you? What are you planning to squeeze in time for in this next year?
Well, I love the work I'm doing in the veteran space, serving veterans. I do want to take it to another level, and I'm constantly looking to train the trainers or develop people that like to do what I do in the veteran talent, but also because I actually built the program from ground up to where we at today. I love to help other companies that's looking to have a solid, reputable veteran recruiting program. So that's something I would like to do. And then I think I have a couple of extra books in me that I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to hear. No working titles yet?
No, not yet. Especially with what's going on now. It's like, you know what? Let me see how I can maximize and leverage my time.
I love that. So in terms of people wanting to reach out to you, I have included your LinkedIn and your email. Is there another site or another platform where people should or could learn more about you and connect with you?
Sure. So they can go to my website. It's www.dylan.raymond. That's DYLANERAYMOND.com. And you can just learn about me, what I do. We can jump on a quick call. But and one of the things, so when I talk with clients, I always tell them, say, help me help you. This is your opportunity. I'm going to help facilitate you to reach the plans that you're looking to reach. Or they can call me also directly at 832-301-5110.
Excellent. Well, Dylan, thank you so much. You are I love what you're doing in the veteran space. You're making such a big difference in people's lives. And, really good advice, really, even for all job seekers. I think it's very transferable across industries. So thank you again.
No worries. I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed the time.
You take care.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's SCIM online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.